My name is Jan. I'm based in Berlin in Germany. I am German. My title is Chief Data Editor at an organization called OCCRP. OCCRP is it's a complicated name. It's short for the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. We basically run our own newsroom, and at the same time, we provide investigative support to what we call member centers in different countries, historically mostly focused on Eastern Europe, the Balkans, former Soviet countries. In the recent past, we have expanded a little bit, so we have a lot of member centers in South America, Latin America now. We are doing stories on Southeast Asia, East Asia, etc., etc. We have an Africa desk as well. The total organization is roughly 200 people, 180 plus. And we have a formal headquarter in Amsterdam. Nobody's really there. Everyone's kind of spread around a little bit. And we do have people in DC and in Sarajevo as well. The organization is roughly 15 years old. None of this really matters, but I just put it up here for you. We do, as the name says, we do reporting on organized crime, on corruption. So a lot of our stories are cross-border stories, cross-newsroom as well. So we collaborate a lot. For a news organization of that size, we have quite a big tech and data teams, separate teams. We are also open to pitches. So we have a North America editor now. If any of you wants to work with us on a story, or if you have a more sort of data-driven, data-focused thing that you want to talk about, you can go to me, or you can talk to our editor as well. I'm happy to make the contact. One of the things that comes up a lot, and this is a real screenshot with a real typo in it, is that we have people who work with sources or who have friends who are really good with the internet, and they end up with a data leak in their possession on their desk. And OCCRP as an organization a while ago has decided that we want to build a solution for this kind of problem. And the thing that we came up with is called Aleph. It's one of the solutions. So there's a little star asterisk up there because there's more than one. So other organizations have tools like this. I'm going to talk about our solution today. It's called Aleph. It's an open source software. You can run it yourself, but I'm going to be mostly speaking about the instance that we run and that we, under certain circumstances, also give people access to. I'm going to do a little bit of theory just because it's going to make sense later on. So one of the important sort of things that we think about when we kind of want to find out how Aleph can help us in our daily work is the difference between structured and unstructured data. I'm going to be speaking about these things quite a bit. And what I mean by this is basically, you can basically think of structured data as anything that comes in a tabular form. So the easiest one is like a CSV file or a Excel sheet or Google Sheet or whatever. And then unstructured data is basically all the things that you can't really put in a table, right? So here's some examples. Aleph's pretty okay at handling both of these, but it's doing it in a very different way. I stole this from my colleague Eric. It's the data iceberg. So we're going to be mostly speaking about the stuff down here. Aleph does not really do a lot of this stuff up here. I mean, it gives you leads, but you still have to do the reporting. It's usually the starting point or like somewhere in the beginning of an investigation. It's probably never the end where you find something and then you just go and run with it and publish an hour later or a day later. And the good thing about it is that it takes away a lot of the work below the waterline here. So it does a lot of heavy lifting on tasks that people don't necessarily see in the end when they read the story, but that are super useful for the reporter. For Aleph to be able to do this, what we have to do is prepare the data a little bit. So internally, it uses a data schema, a data model. It's called the FTM model, FTM for follow the money, because that's most of the stories that we do. And when I say sort of prepare the data, it's basically what I mean is that we have to find the right, we call it entity. We have to find the right entity to represent the data that we are looking at. It sounds super abstract, and it is a little bit abstract, but it basically means if we want to describe a person, we have to make sure that we use the right properties that Aleph can understand. So in Aleph, a person can have a date of birth and never a birth date, for example. It's a very simple example, right? So this is what we do. We find the right hole to put the right sort of shape in it. In reality, it's a bit more complex. You don't have to worry about it at all. That's a screenshot of the current data schema that Aleph understands. I don't know if you can read it, but it's basically like this says address up here. These are the properties that it will accept for an address. It says email down here. There's a set list, like a finite list of properties that it will accept, etc., etc. There's like person here, organization, then organization can split in public and company. Yeah, you don't have to remember it. It's also on our website. And this is basically what's happening in the back end. So why do we do all this? We put it in the same shape and form so that we can run our queries across all the data that we have at the same time. We don't have to worry about what field we are looking for necessarily, right? If we are interested in people or companies, if we want to check out if a company shares an address with a different company, we can just search for that. And we are sure, since Aleph only accepts a certain structure, we're going to be sure that what we see actually sort of represents the answer to our question here, right? And that's pretty powerful because it allows you to basically type in a search term, a search query, and then find records across multiple leaks, across multiple data sets, across structured, unstructured data, you name it. The idea behind it is that we have usually a lot of hits for search terms, especially if you start with like simple last name searches or company name searches. There are probably going to be some hits, false positives as well. And we can use some of these properties to filter it down a little bit and make it more manageable and give you the more relevant ideas, search results behind it. It also helps you to not get hacked as easily. So if you look at Office documents, if you look at emails inside of Aleph, within the Aleph sort of web interface, we make sure that none of the macros run, none of the embedded malicious code runs. And this is a shout out to David as well. He and his team, they put together it's on the Humber website. They put together a pretty good guide that explains how you can basically use it to look at data where you don't really trust the data source, right? I'm not saying you're never going to get hacked if you use Aleph, but I'm kind of saying you never get hacked. So, okay. It's a lot of theory. It's a bit abstract, everything. So I want to show you how we use it in an actual, like, real life example in a real life workflow. This is a picture that I think The Guardian ran in April last year, when the Russian blogger slash pro-war kind of influencer, even almost, Vladimir Tatarsky was killed in an explosion in a cafe. I don't know if any of you remember this. Kind of when it was sort of breaking news for like half an hour. And this is the interesting half an hour that I want to talk about a little bit, because in the beginning, it was a lot of what was going on here was pretty unclear, and some of the original news said there was a cafe on the Neva River. So this is an example from my colleague Oksana. She actually did it back then. So she went on Google Maps and she kind of figured out which of these places was attacked, so where the explosion happened. And she ended up finding it's called the street food bar number 1, doesn't really matter. She found the place and she matched it with the pictures that were available at the time. And this is in German now, but it gives you a website, essentially. This is what we are interested in. So from Google Maps, basically from here to here to here, we now have a website. We're like 5 minutes in of the breaking news event here, right? In macOS, there's a built-in sort of little whois service. You can just open a terminal, type in whois, and then a domain. It's going to give you some information about the owner of the domain. And in this case, what we are interested in is the taxpayer ID. This is from the actual whois record. They changed it now because I I mean, the cafe doesn't exist anymore, and the website, they didn't pay for it last year. So I tried to get an updated screenshot. It's going to look different now. But back then, she got this taxpayer ID, and she also got a name of a company. So what I'm trying to do now is show you how this is actually useful information. And I'm going to jump over to a live Aleph login. Right. 1 sec. Okay, let me copy this. Okay. So this is what it looks like. It says test user on top now because I have a demo account that I use for these types of demonstrations and panels. But essentially, if you log in, if you have an account, if you log in, it's kind of going to be similar like this. And the first thing that she did was basically go up here and type in the taxpayer ID. And I mean, we have some experience with this. We know that in Russia, basically the taxpayer ID is like a very, it's a very good indicator because it's unique. It stays the same across the company's life. You have to have like some regional knowledge, but it's not necessarily rocket science. So, so that's super interesting because she found a number of hits here. And we have Concord M again. So if you remember that this was also the name of the OOO, by the way, is the equivalent of limited in Russian. So it's a limited company. And sorry, let me move this over here. And one of them, for example, is called the Russian Peps and their company. So this sounds interesting. So we can go here and we can also double check. It's the same registration number, tax ID number is the same name. And we can go over here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we have a data set that says the company that registered the website potentially also owns the cafe, is owned by someone called Yevgeny Prigozhin. Some of you might have heard this name. It's the guy. It's the guy that went up and then down. Okay, so we have 5 minutes in, and this is already sort of something that if we were a breaking news website, which we are not, we would probably try to get online as fast as possible, right? There's some other stuff that you can do. You can also go here and then go over here, and it's going to give you a list of more companies that are associated with the same person, right? And each of these is going to have some sort of properties and some metadata on it as well. And then there's also some information on the person, on Prigozhin himself over here. So he also has this ID number in Russia. He has a birth date. He has some names that he uses, or some spellings of his name. Okay, cool. It's actually interesting. So at this point, we already sort of found some cool stuff in Aleph. But there's one other thing I wanted to show you. One neat feature is that if you have Cyrillic text and you hover your mouse over it, it's just going to show you the Latin. It's not the translation of the word. It's just sort of transliterating the characters, right? So you kind of know what each of these words mean if you don't read Cyrillic or Russian. We also have a data set that's called Russian public procurement data. And the same company also shows up here. So that's interesting as well. So now we have established that the company is owned by Prigozhin, where we can also, I'm going to expand this here. We can also go here, and what we're going to find is that the same company received a lot of basically public what are these called? Is that a tender? I'm sorry, like my vocabulary is, yeah? Okay, I see some like slightly nodding heads. Okay, cool. So that's basically one quick real life example how we and our reporters at OCCRP and the member centers sort of integrate Aleph in their workflows. So something happens. Again, we're not in breaking news, but if we were, both of these little like pieces of information would be very useful. And we are essentially like 5 minutes into the situation, or maybe 20, I don't know. Okay, let's do this in a bit more structured way so I can show you, oh, sorry. I can show you what you can actually do in Aleph. Before I do this, how many people in this room have actually seen this website or a website that had their, I mean, how many people logged into our platform before? Like 3, 4, okay, someone in the back. Okay, cool. That helps me to sort of figure out how we do this. I have 30 more minutes, right? Oh, we started at 30, 1/2 past. I think so, yeah. Oh, 20. Oh, okay. Okay. If you use, if you log into Aleph, the first and like simplest thing, and the thing that I did before, is basically you can go up here. You can just type in a name. Let's say we are interested in someone called Putin, because why not? And it's just what it's going to do. It's going to search across all the data sets and all the investigations that you have access to. I'm going to explain in a bit what the difference is between an investigation and a data set. And then this gives you back a lot of results, as I said. Like in this case, it's 10,000 plus. We kept it at 10,000, but nobody's going to read it anyways. So the next thing I want to do is basically filter it down a little bit. So let's say Putin's probably a person that I'm interested in. Okay, great. So 4,000 results. It's a little bit better. And again, here you can do this little trick if you're not sure if it's actually saying Putin, but it is. And then the next thing I might want to do is sort of filter it down here. These are the different data sets that contain the name Putin, but not just the name Putin, but the name in a person entity. So if we think back of this horrible large chart that I showed you, a lot of things can be named Putin for some reason. But we said we are only interested in people or person entities called Putin, right? So that's why it's breaking it down a little bit. Let's say we want to figure out what Thomson Reuters word check says about him. Okay, cool. There is a number of different Putins. So we are probably interested in Vladimir. So let's go over here. And then once we figured out what we want to see, what we can do is, for example, we can go over here and we can bookmark this person, right? And then we can go back and we can go, I don't know, for some reason we are also interested in Maria. And this is kind of like a simple, straightforward way. You don't have to do a lot. You don't have to understand like a lot of what's going on in the background. If you want to build a little investigation, you can just do this. You can do different searches. You can put them together and then they're going to be saved. Oh, okay. The last person who used this demo account did not delete their bookmarks. So sorry for that. They also did the same little trick that I did. So you can go back to your bookmarks. And that's basically, I mean, this is kind of how I would say probably like a third of the Aleph users just use the platform, right? You go in, you do your searches. You can go a little bit more crazy on the searches. So one of the features we have is the advanced search feature. So let's say this is probably, I mean, this is similar to what other platforms do. This is also similar to, for example, Google operators or operations. You can do a minus, you can do a, what's it called? Like a phrase search in quotes, find the exact phrase. You can do, you can, well, don't worry about it. No, you can, but it's not here. You can do spelling variations, where you would say like, well, Putin's pretty easy to spell, but if someone sort of had a name that sometimes it's spelled with OU and sometimes it's just a U, for example, you can say, I want a variation of 1, so it's going to find these as well. Even though Aleph has a built-in little feature, so if we search, let's, for example, search for, oops, gonna go over here, remove this. For search for Mohammed. So Mohammed in Latin script, oh, we're still filtering by, well, anyways. Mohammed in Latin script has like probably 10 different ways of spelling it. You can have Muhammad, Mohammed, you can have one M, double M, some have T's in the end. So Aleph does a little bit of this for you in the background as well. So it will return names, and this is specific to names. It's not doing it across all search terms. It's specific to names where it will return what Aleph sort of believes also falls under the same category. As you can see here, like the first example does not have Mohammed in the spelling that I used. And then if we go down here, I'm pretty sure there's someone who spelled with a U. Wait, I saw someone here. Yeah. Okay, here's someone spelled with a U as well. So it does some of this transliteration in the background, and it also does it across different alphabets, as we saw with the Putin example, right? Cool, let's go back here. Let's do another one. Let's say we are interested in, Clinton and Putin. And we want these words to be not more than 5. There shouldn't be a gap of more than 5 other words in between these 2 words, right? Makes sense? Okay, let's search. I'm making these up on the fly, so I don't really know if there's stuff coming up. Oh, wow, wait, this didn't do it. No, I didn't search. It's just searched and empty. And since Azerbaijan, all the they're in alphabetic order, and all the countries starting with an A are going to show up first if you do an empty search. I think I should have clicked here 5, and then we go here, and then we search. Okay, cool. So no, it's here. No, it's here. So this basically is, I mean, the little wizard just helps you to sort of create these things that you can also do by hand if you do like quotes and then have a tilde and then a 5. That means there should be a maximum gap of 5. Yeah, I don't really want to go into detail of these. We have the Podesta emails here, so I was expecting these to come up. They should be somewhere. Yeah, they're here. Okay, so this is a useful thing to do if you kind of want to figure out if there's documents. So some of these documents are going to have like 1,000 pages, and then the first page is going to say Vladimir Putin did thing A, and then page 849 is going to say something about the person that you're interested in. So you can sort of work around this if you use this little trick. There's more stuff that you can do in the advanced search section. I don't really want to show these because they are very sort of self-explanatory. But we can search for another name maybe. Does anyone have a good name? What's a good, interesting figure in Toronto? I heard about the Ford family last night. Is that a thing? What, Doug, D-O? And then F-O-R-D, like the Ford?
His college has his own postal code.
Okay. Let's do a search. I hope we found some. Ah, cool. He's in Reuters. Okay, interesting. So there are some, I kind of wanted to show you this because I was hoping that it will pull up different types of entities, and it did, in fact. So if you've used Aleph a few times, you will figure out that these search results have a slightly different, by the way, is that large enough for you to see? Like this is like a detail here. They have a slightly little icon, a slightly different icon next to the name, to the actual search result. And that will give you an indication of what kind of entity Aleph believes we are looking at, right? So the little thing, it looks a bit like a, I don't know what it is, like a snowflake. This is our sort of umbrella entity. It's called a legal entity. So it can either be a person or a company. We don't know because in most cases, the data sets won't necessarily tell us, right? The Reuters word check leak that we have, it wouldn't necessarily tell us if someone is a person or a company, and we don't do this manually, we do this programmatically, so we just kind of throw them all in as a legal entity. Then this one here, the little sort of, I don't know, building, maybe, this is a corporate entity, it's a company, which we would have seen from the limited as well, but in some cases, especially in other languages, it's not like super clear immediately. And then this down here is a person, right? And this is kind of the same thing that we can do also by filtering on the side. So, so if we look at the sidebar here now, what we will see is it mixes sort of people, companies, but also documents. That means in Aleph, everything is an entity. You can extract, and I have an example for this. This is going to sound a little bit abstract. We can extract information from tables or from other documents, and then they will become their own entity. But you can also just sort of search a document or an email, and it's going to do full text search on it. So there's an email somewhere in here, not one, but 1,800, that just sort of match the search string Doug Ford, right? Oh, interesting. Okay. Cool. So that's kind of the basic search in Aleph. So what we haven't really looked at is where all this stuff comes from. As I said earlier, the distinction that we make at OCCRP is, sorry, let me go back to the main page. We make a distinction between data sets and investigations. So data sets basically is information that we as an organization at OCCRP, me and my colleagues, we provide for people to use, right? So depending on your access level, this account is on the access level that we usually give to investigative reporters. You're going to have a different amount of data sets that are available to you. So in this case, 750. If I would log in with my personal account, I have a higher permission level. The number is going to be higher. If you log in with a vanilla just created account, this number is going to be very low. These data sets have different categories and also different sort of histories. I don't know if that's the right term. Some of these came to us from friendly reporters, from other groups that we work with. Some of them were leaked to us. Some of them we found on our own on the internet. Some are also, oh, there's a dog. I didn't see that. Hey dog. Some of them we also scrape from websites. So there's going to be public data in there as well. Let's say we're interested in gazettes, for example. So I guess most of these are going to be scraped. So we have a team that runs 180, 200 scrapers. Not all of them are running as frequently, but some of them run like weekly or monthly or bi-weekly. And they will just go out, fetch some of this information, put it in Aleph, and make it available for you. So this data is also on the internet, obviously. So you can go to all of these websites, but you can also just go here and kind of type in your name, search across them. Does it make sense so far? Do we have any questions? No? Yeah.
How does the like when you upload a data set, how does whatever's in the back end find entities within unstructured data, and how are those like relationships established?
It doesn't. The extraction of entities is mostly manual. I don't mean manual in the sense of someone clicking a lot. I mean that my colleagues and myself, we usually write mappings for it. So let's say we have the UK Companies House, which is all the companies in the UK, and then we have a scraper for it. It's going to return JSON data in most cases. And then we basically wrote a mapping once, and we said, this means this. This translates into this. It's kind of what I showed with the building blocks in the beginning, that the right shape goes into the right hole. Aleph does something that is very similar to this, but not exactly the same. So if you have a document, what it's going to do for you, maybe. I'm waiting for this thing here. It's going to do a little bit of, this is the JD Vance PDF, by the way, that was published by Klippenstein, I think. It's going to do what we call named entity recognition. So we run a little algorithm across all documents, and we say, if you have anything that's like that sort of resembles a person's name or company's name or whatever, just please pull it out and show it to us, right? And it does this across the document, and it's also going to show you all the other occurrences across all the data that you have access to of the same person or the same name. It does not, the difference, we call this a mention and the other one we call an entity. The difference is that this sort of, it doesn't really tell you if it's a person. It doesn't sort of add properties to it. There's not going to be a birthday attached to it. We are, however, working on automating this a bit more and making this easier to sort of, or making this more useful and pull out more information, but it's sort of a future thing. I think I have to speed up a little bit, I'm sorry. But if you have questions, just keep them coming. Okay, so data sets. The other thing that you can do, and this is where it becomes more complex, but also I think more powerful, is the investigations part over here. So investigations basically is anything that you as a user have control over and that you want to upload to Aleph. So we have datasets. My mouse is a bit lagging over here. We have datasets here. This is provided by OCCRP, more or less. And with investigations, this is kind of your workspace. We don't look at your data. You can create an investigation. You can share it with your friends if they have Aleph accounts. And you will only see what other people shared with you. Most of this is going to be demo data because we use this account for demos. But if you think that using Aleph is a good idea for your newsroom, for example, and you put together, I don't know, 3 or 4 people, this is kind of your space where you can go and share some of the information. And it's actually pretty simple. So all you have to do is click, like, just call this demo now. Okay, lazy. All you have to do is click create investigation. The languages tab is actually important because it improves the optical character recognition by a lot. So if you have, do people know what that is? OCR? Okay, cool. If you have PDFs or images or whatever, and it extracts the text, so it needs to know which language the text is going to be in. So let's just say it's English, and I don't know, let's also say it's French, because why not? And then basically what we have now is our empty little investigation. There's no data in it. I just created it. It's completely empty. And then what you can do is just go upload documents. So I prepared a little like set of files. There's bank. By the way, the presentation and all of these files, if you want to test this out for yourself, I'm going to share with you. So in this little folder that I created, there's a couple of CSV files, 3 CSV files in total. They contain bank account information, they contain company information, they contain information on people. There's also a screenshot that I took from the data-driven sort of conference website. And then there's my favorite email from a leak that we got a while ago. And what I did is I put it in a zip file because it's easier to handle. So Aleph's going to do this for you. So I'm just going to upload the zip file. And then we go back here. We see that there's a little spinning wheel up here. And it's basically processing the files right now. To speed things up a little bit, I did this last night already, so I'm going to go over here because it's now doing some work in the background. It's going to do some OCR, et cetera, et cetera. And then at some point, what's going to happen is that you have your documents here. So this is the zip file that we just kind of put in. It's the same file. And then if we go here, it has unzipped the folder. And here are the files, right? So this is the email. There's a little tiny email icon here, which you can't really see from the back, I guess. This is a table, and then this is a screenshot. And if we go at the screenshot, for example, so this is the thing that I just uploaded. And then what it did, it extracted the text. So you can now kind of, I mean, imagine doing this not to 1 file, but maybe to like 500 files, pictures you took, or scan PDFs as well. And now I can just go and sort of full text search across this. And in this case, it did not extract any entity, any mentions. But if I had a, well, it should have maybe found this. I don't know. But if I had a list of people's names, for example, they would usually pop up here. It also gives me some of the metadata. There's not a lot here because it's a screenshot. But if this was taken with a camera and there was like the type of camera or the type of phone that took the picture, or if you have the author information on some of the Word documents, for example, or Microsoft Office documents, that would all show up on the sidebar over here. The other thing I uploaded is an email. So emails look slightly different. They are parsed nicely, so you can look at them. You will see who sent the email, what the subject line was, who it was sent to. And the difference with the emails is that it automatically creates entities from the sender and the receiver. So this is not a mention here. This is an entity that Aleph created. It's a person, and it is related to the email. So it says email sent here. So if you do this across like a larger league of emails, you kind of can just go in and look at all the, like if I had 1,000 emails, I would only ever want to be, I would only be interested in the emails that Arya sent. I can just go there and they would all be listed here, right? The email itself is interesting. It's from a leak of the, I don't even really know what he is. His Highness, he was, sorry. His Highness Sheikh Hassan bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Their private office. Oh, okay. Thank you. Emails have attachments. We all know this. We get a lot of them, I guess. So this one had a PDF attachment. So Aleph extracted the attachment as well. It's going to show you the attachment just like you uploaded. This is, by the way, the order for the weekly caviar order. So 30 pieces of whatever that is. That is Imperial Caviar House. I don't know. It's probably expensive. I think there's a price somewhere in here. I don't know. In this league, there was a whole like back and forth about ordering the right caviar. And then what we see here, for example, this is interesting. This is the hash sum from the file. So every file has an individual. It's kind of like a fingerprint. So there's an algorithmic way of comparing a file bit by bit, byte by byte to a different file. So if the same file, which is the case here, is in any of the other datasets, the exact same copy of the file, you will see this as well. Cool. Okay. We're kind of running out of time. I want to show you something cool. We talked a lot about entities and mappings. So what we did here in the demo files is these are just people's names, passports, passport numbers. I made most of this stuff up. Nationality, address, etc., etc. So what Aleph can do, I said that my colleagues and I, we do this by writing these mappings. We do this outside of Aleph just to speed things up and to be have a bit more control over it. But there's also a way of doing it inside of Aleph. So let's say for the people column, and it's very nice and color coded, you can define what a person is. And then for each of these columns, you're going to be able to sort of map this column to a property in the data model that Aleph uses. So think back to the shapes and the building blocks, and this is what we do here. So passport is passport number, place of birth, nationality, etc., etc. So you do this per column, not per person. So no matter how long your spreadsheet is, it's going to do it for all of them. And you also define a key. In this case, it's the name. That is what I use to sort of within my investigation say this is the same person. So if the same name pops up in a different file, it will extract the information. I also did this on the companies. This looks a little bit different because this has relationships in it. So this company says, sorry, this spreadsheet says, this is a company, it has a jurisdiction, yada, yada, but it also has an owner. The owner, again, is a person, right? In the Aleph sense of things, it's a different type of entity, so I can connect these two. And then I did the same for bank accounts. We don't have to look at it. It looks very similar. But what it does to you is it gives you these people entities, which we can then look at. And in this example, so now what it did, it pulled out it compared the two spreadsheets. It looked at the keys. The keys in this case is the name, but if you have, for example, a passport number, it's going to do it much better. If you have a birthday, the better the information you have is, the easier it's going to be. And it pulled out all the companies. So what we're looking at right now is information that is spread out across multiple spreadsheets, all in one place for Bob Smith, right? Or if we go back here, I don't know, go back down here. And then it did the same thing for the companies as well. So the companies have their own little profile now, and they have two owners in this case. And I can kind of jump back and forth. And I'm almost done, but the one thing that I still want to show you, I have to go back to my presentation as well. You can also throw this into a network diagram and then map it out like this. So in this case, I don't know, let's expand this. Let's say we're interested in all the other assets and shares of Mr. Bob Smith. So it's going to pop it out like this. And boom, here we found like a little connection between these two people. And doing this across like a number of spreadsheets manually for a human is really, really hard. Doing this in that way and sort of expanding the different properties in a spreadsheet is much, much easier. That's why we built this. This is supposed to be a research and reporting tool. This is not supposed to go on your website or anything. Like, it's not a data viz tool, but I think it's super useful in terms of sort of mapping out companies and company structures and relationships between people. Cool. Do we have any questions? Yeah.
Off in your own little investigation, or
yes.
okay.
By default it is, yeah.
Okay.
So sorry, I just really quickly pulled up the time. We also have a timeline feature, which is sort of in work in progress, so it doesn't integrate well with the other stuff, but you can also map out your own timeline. So I created a little event for today. And down here, sorry, there's some overlay from here. So down here, I said that Bob Smith was at this event on my timeline. So if I go back to my Bob Smith over here, then here it's going to say like, these are the assets and these are the events that Bob Smith was at. So it works very similar. Sorry, by default. What do you mean? Oh yeah, I'm going to tell the developers. We hear the opposite quite a lot, but thank you.
I know what it.
Each investigation has a little settings wheel up here, like a little, I don't know what this is. And there's a share button right here. And this investigation, for example, I shared with my personal account. And then I also shared it with, this is the test user that we're on. But if you had a valid, if you had a valid colleague's email address, I mean, Aleph user address, you can just type it in here and then share. And you can also define if the person should be able to view or edit the investigation. The default setting is that only you can see it.
But if you choose to share it with the entire thing, it gets a little score. Is that right? Did I understand that right? Based on how long you've been, no?
No.
Sorry. What was the number? You said there's like a low number and a high number. Do that again.
Did I say it? Wait,
I think you said when you're like a test user or new user, you don't.
Oh, you see more data. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. No. What I meant is that this number up here. So right now, this person that I'm logged in with has access to 750 data sets and I don't even know, 65 investigations. And this number is going to change if you have a higher level of permission. It's just counting the data sets that you have access to and the investigations. Okay, cool. There's a bit of a learning curve to the whole mapping thing. It's kind of overwhelming if you do it for the first time, but I feel like it's actually worth it if you have these problems where you have like lists of people, lists of companies, and you kind of want to figure out how they connect. So yeah, it's pretty well documented. I suggest you go check out the documentation. Most of this is going to be on this website as well. So. And also, if you go here, if you go here and then here, there are some quick links down here which lead you to sort of more info on how these things work. Cool, let me go back here and just finish this up real quick. As I said in the beginning, there's a difference between Aleph the software and Aleph the website that OCCRP runs. You're very welcome to host your own instance. It's gonna come empty. You can put in whatever you want. We have a little Slack community where we help people set this up. If you're more on the techie side, we also publish the source code on GitHub, obviously, so you can go check it out. If you are interested in access to Aleph that we just looked at, the OCCRP Aleph, we have currently, just for very boring hiring reasons, we're hiring a new person to be responsible for this. We've currently paused the signups, but if you send me an email or if you talk to me at the conference, I can set you up with an account. It's restricted to people who work in journalism and investigative journalism, ideally. And you need your personal email and your personal account. We don't monitor what you do, but we want to have some sort of control over who has access to this kind of data. And we also have some data sets in there where we made promises to people who gave us the data to sort of not share it outside of the community, to share it with people who actually want to use it in a journalistic context. So that's the reason why. I also have some breaking news, which is just for a very niche audience, but the niche audience is going to be excited about it. Some people who have followed the story of Aleph for a bit longer. So there are some things that are not going super well in Aleph currently. Some things are just sort of technically a little bit broken, and we have a lot of legacy code. But we at OCCRP are rewriting Aleph currently. We are going to change how we sort of index and process data. It's going to make it much more stable. It's going to make it much more easy to move data into Aleph. So what we did just now with uploading a single file is pretty simple. If you have 1 million files, it's a bit more complicated. There are tools for this, but this is going to be integrated better in the future Aleph. And one thing that's going to be the main change for sort of from a user perspective is that we adapt the follow the money data schema a little bit. And there's going to be that's why I was confused about your question a little bit. There's going to be a confidence score on data sets and on sort of where the information came from. So if you look at someone and there's like 5 different birth dates for this person in the Aleph data set, we're going to try to help you a little bit figuring out which one is the correct one and where the information came from. We are also working on a completely new scraper framework, which, again, niche audience, but the people who have worked with the old one are going to be super excited about this. My colleague Eric is doing this. It comes with this is unfortunately the only thing that I can share about the new developments, because the new Aleph that we are working on looks exactly like the old Aleph from a user's perspective at this point. So it's kind of, I could have shown you a screenshot of what we actually just looked at, and I could have told you that in the backend it's doing something completely different. The scraper framework, if you're more on the techie side, comes with a nice, I think it's called a TUI, a terminal user interface. So this gives you like sort of like overviews of the different stages that a scraper is in and the different things it's doing. It's pretty neat. It's very nice. Okay, this is my email address. This is a short link to a Google Drive that has the slides and also the demo data. I think I also put the mappings in there. So if you want to take a look at what a mapping looks like in Aleph. As I said, I understand that some of this is abstract and complex. I think it's worth it, especially for sort of more complex follow the money investigations. And that's it for me. Thank you.